Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Bashito, it's June 1st. And before we go any further, just because our guest is great friends with Wayne Wayne, but Don, our intro, we had Wayne Wayne on the show probably a couple months ago. And he's like, hey, I got a great intro for you. And so we've been using that. And so Wayne Wayne, if you're going to listen in on this one, we love you and appreciate you. And thank you for hooking us up with an original intro. With that, good morning to Don and Pasha. I'll just let you guys say hello to each other real fast.
Hello.
Hey, good morning, Don. Thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Excited.
Well, we are excited, because Don brings such diversity, and it is going to be an incredible episode. Again, listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. And we're going to get down today, our guest, Dawn Dais. And first of all, where you can contact her, DAWNDAIS.com, Dawn Dais designs.com, and throwing-starfish.org. And our email address is dawn, DAWN, at dawndais.com. And our Instagram at Dawn Dais, again, DAWNDAIS, and at the shit no one tells you. That's also her Instagram. And then her Twitter is by Dawn Dais. And we haven't even got into the intro. That's a lot in itself.
That's a lot.
Did we get it right? Hopefully.
Hopefully. You find me somewhere. I don't know. All Google right. Google it. I'm there.
Yeah. Here we go. About the guest, best-selling author of 102 Things to Do Before You Are Due, The Shit No One Tells You About Pregnancy, The Overly Honest Baby Book, Coupons for the New Mom, The Shit No One Tells You About Baby Number 2, The Shit No One Tells You About Toddlers, The Shit No One Tells You, and of course, the Non-Runner's Marathon Guide for Women. Yes. Dawn is a talented graphic designer and filmmaker. She decided she needed something else to do, so in 2018, Dawn founded Throwing Starfish Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to serve the most vulnerable in the community. A few recent projects include making comfort kits for foster children, making COVID kits for healthcare providers, and raising over $200,000 for the Paradise/Chico fire victims a few years ago. Dawn is a mother of 2 beautiful children, has 2 dogs, 2 cats, recently divorced, and doing what only Dawn can do, writing about it. And I'm guessing the shit no one tells you about getting divorced, but I don't know the title of the book. Dawn is full of life, passion, energy, love, tenderness, humor, sarcasm, creativity, and purpose. Dawn, welcome to the show.
Wow, that's a lot. That's quite a buildup. I don't know if I can live up to all that. Thank you though for the intro. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think this thought of the day is going to be a great place for us to start, because in researching you, I obviously didn't know anything about you before. Wayne said, hey, you got to have Dawn on your show, and love him, so reached out to you, and then here we go. But yeah, you just get stuff done, and you have so many interests, and when you cross something that you're interested in, you go all in, and then you make it something that you can share with people to inspire them and help them through whatever is going on. So I want to thank you for doing that work, because it's work that's worth doing and so needed. And with that, here is our thought of the day. And I've been 100% on these, Don. And this is, I could pick quotes, I don't know how many millions of quotes, but in researching you, this is the one that spoke to me with what I witnessed. So no pressure for me. It's a long one too. For what it's worth, it's never too late, or in my case, too early to be whoever you want to be. There's no time limit. Stop wherever you want. You can change or stay the same. There are no rules to this thing. We can make the best or the worst of it. I hope you make the best of it. And I hope you see things that startle you. I hope you feel things you've never felt before. I hope you meet people with a different point of view. I hope you live a life you're proud of. If you find that you're not, I hope you have the strength to start all over again. And that's from Benjamin Button, and the quote originated with F. Scott Fitzgerald. But what are your thoughts on that quote?
I just posted that quote on my Instagram and social media like last week.
Come on.
And then my friend said it's actually from a series of letters that he wrote to his children, or maybe his daughter specifically. And so I downloaded the book and have been reading different letters that he wrote. Yeah, so obviously, did you know that? Did you find that?
I did not.
Yeah, I love a good quote. I love a good quote. And that one, I think especially there's a couple parts of that quote that I really enjoy. I hope you see things that startle you. And if you're not living a life that you're proud of, I hope you have the strength to change it. I think that both of those things speak really strongly to me and kind of how I led my life. But the startling thing is always something that I think is worth noting, because I think people play it safe a lot. And I found for me that the things that scare me or startle me or make me a little off balance are the things that are worth pursuing, And so, yeah, whenever something scares me a bit, I'm like, oh, I should probably go investigate that a little bit, because it's usually just I'm a bit of a control freak. So the things that scare me are usually things that feel a little outside of my control or outside of my wheelhouse. And so it's always worth kind of exploring those things and seeing if I can get comfortable with them or be less scared by them. I guess on the other side of fear, there's always some really cool things to be found.
I love that. And what a great essential ingredient right out of the gate. And I love, I love how you took the startle and instead of us kind of playing small and getting scared by that and letting our fear dictate, you said, no, that's the stuff that I want to run to. And I think that's what, again, in researching you, it's been interesting. That's what you've been doing, and it seems like maybe, and I don't know exactly where you grew up, but I know you've always done stuff to give back, and don't know in a weird way if, the Habitat for Humanity work, volunteering for post-Hurricane Katrina, definitely various homeless shelters that you've been part of and given back. But I, in a weird way, see even that quote and what you've done in your life and that tying in and making a lot of sense. So I guess, where does that come from, in you of always giving back and wanting to make things better?
It's actually really selfish, because when I was a young kid, I remember, I think it was around Christmas or something, there was someone ringing that bell outside. It was at the Salvation Army, outside of the grocery store, and I gave them money, and I was just a little kid, I don't know. And I just remember it felt amazing. And so when you volunteer and you do good stuff, it's probably the most amazing feeling in the world. So it's really selfish in that regard, but it's just something that makes me feel good, and so I keep doing it. And so I kind of always was involved in community stuff and drawn to situations and opportunities that allowed me to feel like I was giving back more than just writing a check. I'm big on kind of get my hands dirty a little bit. And then over the years, it kind of grew to me being able to organize other people. And I've found that, a lot of people want to do stuff, but they don't know where to go. They don't know, they want to do something besides write checks, and they want to be active, but where do I go? What do I do? And so I've been able to, kind of get to the place where I can organize things that get people involved. And I've always, once people get involved and they get that feeling, then, they seek it out in other situations. They seek out opportunities to help because they realize how awesome it feels. So Yeah, post Katrina, I was really drawn to the New Orleans area. There was something about that particular tragedy that I don't know. There's something about it, and like sort of the soul of that city is something that is kind of indescribable until you go there, and they're not easily broken. And so it was. I was really drawn to New Orleans specifically in that general area after Katrina. So I went out there several times, and in my early 20s, I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity internationally, and that was like, God, I was probably 24, 25, and I just went on a trip. It was a group trip, but I didn't know anyone, and I just signed up, and I went to Honduras, I think was where I went for my first one, and I'm still like really good friends with several people from that trip, and I've traveled the world with them, and it was an amazing experience. And there's just something about manual labor for the good of someone else that kind of does your heart right. So I caught the bug on that trip, and then I've led a couple trips myself. I went and got trained to be a team leader, and so I've led a few trips for Habitat. So yeah, and then that kind of evolved into more local work, and from there I formed the nonprofit to basically give people a tax write-off when they were donating to these different projects I was doing. So it all kind of just fell into place, and it's really fun. And then when fun's a weird word because you're helping people who are not having the greatest time, but it's really rewarding, and I'm really grateful that I have the time and I have the resources to do that kind of stuff. So after the campfire, we just happened to be timing it just right. We just become a nonprofit a few months prior, and my friend lives up in Chico, and she was like, she had friends that had been displaced, and so we just kind of started raising money. And in those situations, people really want to help, but they're like hesitant to just send a check to American Red Cross because you just really don't know where that money's going. So I'm like, give us money and we'll give it right to people who are in need. And it just snowballed into like a year of work. We're still doing work for people. There's still people that are displaced from that situation, which is so sad. The level of poverty up there was extreme. And so we were able to get grants and do some really amazing work, and it was crazy. So I spent a good year just working like, I don't know, 20 hours a week, just volunteering, moving money around. It was fun. Like you get money in, you give money out. Like, I don't know. It was very rewarding. So.
Man, well, that's a whole bunch in itself. I don't even know how to unpack all of that, but I think some key things. It always feels better to give than to receive. And how cool would it be? And I'm a believer that each and every last person that graces this earth has that inside them. But unfortunately, life gets to be moving too fast, and we don't put people in a position to where they feel like they can do that, where they're having to work 1, 2, or 3 jobs. I wish there was some way to create a platform. And I know there's some businesses, but it's not universal, where everybody can volunteer at their kids' schools. Everybody can pick a project and get paid for that week. Our world would just be so much better. There is such a need, and we would see each other in such a different way. And you said that you're selfish, and I agree, because we're definitely aligned in the same way. And this show, don't know if you're all the way aware, but it's part of a nonprofit, C4 Leaders. Mike and I and my other college roommate and great friend Paul Mifsud kind of run that, and it's our community service just to bring people together. We happen to use pizza to do that and build community, and then we work on just seeing each other, listening to each other, trying to help any which way that we can. But we do that because it feels amazing, and I still believe that everybody wants to do that. We just need to do a better job of making that an option for them. But let's move on. Your background, again, a little bit interesting, I'll just say. You go to college and study accounting, which logically leads you to graphic design. That always goes hand in hand, which of course takes you to being an author. And yeah, that goes right there. And to stay on that trajectory, you know, you start a nonprofit, and you just, you know, sound so much like me. And then I think in part of your graphic design work, you work with political candidates. Help me unpack kind of that story. And I know it's all tied into all this other stuff, because yeah, I'm gonna quit talking and just let you help me make sense of all that and tell that story.
It sounds like very random and a little more scattered than it is. I actually I went to like 400 different colleges, and I just wasn't really, I don't know, I did really well in school all through, you know, K through 12. And I always say that the education I got in school was much different than some of the other kids. Like I tested higher, so I've got like, you know, honors education, and the education you get when you test into honors and AP and stuff like that, it's just night and day from the education that people are getting in the, you know, regular classes. And so like we were being taught how to human from 7th grade, you know, like we had responsibilities that went way beyond when I think back on it now. Gosh, I was 12, 13 years old, and I just have like a pile of books every night that I would just have to have, and I still do it. Like there's a list, I'd have a list of everything I had to do, and I just check it off as I went every single night. And, you know, I played sports and stuff too. And there were a lot of things that I learned super early because I was being challenged educationally, that I was kind of able to take over into adulthood. For some reason, college just wasn't something that I was like super connected to. I think I was tired. I had worked really hard from K to 12, and I think the gen ed in college was just sort of boring. I was like, yeah, if I take one more freaking history or science class, like this is enough. Like I just wanted to focus on something, and I didn't quite know what that was. It just seems obscene to me. I see these kids that are 18 right now, and they're going to college. Like I had no idea who I was at 18, and you just kind of like pick something, and then you kind of go that way. And I don't know. So I just wasn't really connected to college, and I ended up kind of bouncing around, and I ended up in accounting. Who knows why? Well, my aunt owned a bookkeeping business, so I like helped her out, and I'm good at math, and so I did accounting, ended up in an accounting department, had a decent job, and you know, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it, and my brain was sort of like seeping out of my ears from just lack of stimulation, because I'm creative, you know, and accounting is very much not that. So you know, in my 20s, I had sort of like a life explosion where I had to kind of reset. I've had 2 life explosions in my life. One was kind of in my early 20s, 23-ish, and then one's recent, last year or so. And it's when sort of everything just sort of goes ass over tea kettle. And it can be really hard, but it's also a really unique opportunity to kind of put things back together in a way that you want. And I had this opportunity in my 20s. I was sort of, life had exploded. I was working in accounting, not super fulfilled. And I was kind of in a whatever phase, like, I don't know, let's see what's going to happen. And I got this piece of junk mail, and it was a postcard. Normally I just throw it away, right? But I, for some reason, looked at it, and it was a postcard for marathon training as a fundraiser for the Stroke Association. And let's understand that I am not a runner in any way, shape, or form. Like, it's not pretty what happens when I try to run. Like, there's nothing inspirational about my athletic endeavors. So I'm a very lazy person. So there's nothing about a postcard that has people running on it that's gonna like really draw me in, because it's just that's not my jam. So, but my grandfather had a stroke like years prior, and he just passed away. And so he'd been disabled for years, and there's no way he could have done a marathon, let alone even like walk around the block. So I was kind of in a space where I was like, one, sort of open to whatever, because my life had kind of exploded, and I was sort of trying to figure out where I was going. And 2, like I wanted to honor him. And so I was like, I don't know, let's go check it out. And so that postcard and that, let's go check it out, sort of was my sliding doors moment in my life. And it sort of led to everything else that was good about my life from then on. In like the literal sense, I got my first book out of it. That was not the intention to get a book out of it, but I was sending out updates as I was going, because like me running was very humorous. So I would send out updates to people about my very poor attempts at running long distance, and they thought it was awesome to laugh at my pain. And at the end, I had enough that it was sort of people like, you should turn this into a book. Everybody needs to laugh at your pain. So I did. And that became, you know, my first book, and it sold really well. And now I'm on book like 9. But in the life category, what it did was marathon training. You don't just go out and run 26 miles, right? You go out and you run 1 mile very slowly, if you're me. And then you run 3, and then you run 5, then you run 7, then 9, then 11, then 13, then 16, then 18, then 21. And then you go like hobble through a marathon, if you're me. And there's a life lesson there. And like before that time, I was 23, 24. I never finished anything. I'm a big dreamer. I have big ideas. And then I'd be like, meh, that's boring, or that gets hard, or there's another shiny object. And I would just sort of lose focus. And I just never finished anything. And that marathon was the first thing I finished. And it was ridiculous. Like I should have finished something a little smaller first, but whatever. We went with marathon. And in life, you can apply that to anything, right? Anything big. There's steps that you can take to get there. You just have to get down to 1 mile. And so I was able to take that mentality and apply it to so many other things. And it's not always going to be easy. That was a big part of the marathon. It was not easy. That training was gnarly. And like, sometimes you got to sit down on the side of the road and just cry for a little while. And then you got to get back up and you keep going. And it's like, the metaphor is just ridiculously pointed towards anything in life. And so like when I was doing that, I started taking classes in graphic design, because I'm like, I need to figure out a way to be paid to be creative. Like I can't be just some artist that paints pictures, because I need more stability than that. So how can I be paid to be creative? Okay, graphic design. Okay, what do you have to do to be a graphic designer? Okay, step 1, learn the programs. And so I just put in that work. And then I got super lucky, and I found a small business that needed a graphic designer and a bookkeeper. And I was ready, and they were a political consultant. So I kind of got thrown into the fire of, I think I started, it was, I think Bush W, I think it was his second election. And I got hired as an assistant, and the main person quit. And so election season is insane. It's just like you're working 15-hour days and just turning stuff out. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just like, I had a dummies guide sitting next to me for this particular program. So I didn't actually know the program, and I told them I did. So I'm just like taking stuff home and like working on it there, and like just faking it till I make it. And I had a portfolio of graphic design work in like, 6 weeks of political season. And so then I was off and running. And so that was my introduction to graphic design. And then from there, graphic design really has all been word of mouth. I'm pretty good at what I do, but more than that, I think I'm just responsive, and I tell you how much it's going to be, and then that's how much it is. And I turn stuff around quick, and I very rarely cry if you have edits or tell me my stuff is crap. So it's all just kind of word of mouth for that. And then I was able to write the book, and it did well. And so I kept getting opportunity to write more books. And and then, you do really well in those kind of things. And then there's a certain flexibility to being a freelancer that let me explore other things. And the nonprofit was one of those things, traveling. And, I've been super lucky. I got so lucky early on to every time I've gotten lucky, it's been somebody showing up, I've accomplished amazing things, but it's always been the result of somebody showing up and having faith in me. Like my friend walked me around her office to introduce me to people when I was starting out with graphic design. And one of those connections is what kind of catapulted me in my freelance business. And my agent took a chance on me, this nobody writer and really invested time in me and before my first book. And she didn't have to do that. And she did. And she's been amazing for 15 years. And so like, I've just gotten lucky, you know, and I don't take any of that for granted. So it's all very random, but it seems connected to me. It doesn't seem random to me because it's just my life for 15 years, you know?
It's funny, Don, because I was an accounting major for a minute also in college, but I had none of that stuff that you did after. but I love how you talk about the marathon. That's kind of like life, the first mile. And we speak about that a lot here. It's the process.
Yeah.
And I love how you apply that process to the rest of your life. That was just outstanding.
Well, I mean, I think like people always ask me, I want to write a book. How do I write a book? And I'm like, well, here's what you do. And I tell them the steps. If to write a nonfiction book, you have to write a book proposal first, which is essentially like a book report on your book. And it's not fun at all. It's not creative. You have to like do research on your topic, the competing titles, how you're going to reach the audience. What is the audience? What are the numbers? Like, it's boring. And that's what you have to do. So I don't know how many people have written to me over the years, I want to write a book. Okay, write a book proposal. And if you write a book proposal, I will give you the unique opportunity of looking at it. And if it's good, I'll pass it on to my agent. Like, that's huge. I'm giving you an opportunity that I will pass it on. And I think maybe one person has sent me a book proposal in the last 15 years because people they don't want to do those steps. They don't want to do the work. They just want to get to the point where their book is on a shelf and they're, you know, talking to Oprah and selling millions of copies. And there's steps and there's work involved in anything that's going to be of value. And if you're willing to do those steps, I think that anything's really attainable, you know. It's very, I don't know, it's a little overly motivational, but I just think it's true. I think that talent is like a really big part, but if you don't start it, you don't have follow through, then what good is talent, you know?
I think I'm not learning here correctly. I thought step one was be an accountant, then run a marathon, then write a book.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can do that too. Maybe that'll be my next book, my route from accountant to writing or whatever. Yeah, follow me exactly. Go into accounts receivable. That's step one. Accounts receivable was all good dreams start right there. Sprinkle in a little bank reconciliation and you're golden. You're golden.
Yeah, I want to take one step back. I don't want to keep this story going, but there's one thing that I'm just not getting the connection. And I know I heard the process through the marathon, but what was, because you had so many opportunities. I know you started small, 1 mile, 3 mile, 5 mile, but you had so many opportunities. You said some key things of how you hadn't really stuck to anything and you kept bouncing around, and obviously very talented and you always land on your feet. But was there something that really was the tipping point, or was it just the running itself, that process that allows you to have the blueprint to apply to everything in your life thereafter? Because I'm still not getting the strong connection. I feel like there was something significant that led you there to be able to say, hey, I got this now. It doesn't matter what it is. Boom, boom, boom. I have the process. I have the blueprint. I don't know if you're following what I'm saying or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of that simple. I've always been like sort of an overachiever. But in my 20s, my early 20s, I think, you know, because you're supposed to go to college, there's certain things you're supposed to do. And that's part of, you know, figuring out life is there's certain things that you're sort of supposed to do. And I was always very married to the idea of what I was supposed to do and who I was supposed to be. And there at a certain point that kind of wasn't super fulfilling. And so there's a disconnect between what's expected of you and what you actually feel like you want to be and do. And so I think that, you know, right before my marathon, like I said, I kind of had a situation in my life that sort of blew everything up and reset what I was doing. And I just at that point was like, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And I keep sort of not being successful at these big dreams. I don't know. I know it's not you're 20, you're in your 20s, early 20s, right? You don't know anything about anything, but you think you know everything about everything. It's a lethal combination. And I think I got my butt kicked enough that I was sort of open to the idea of something new, of a new way of tackling stuff. And I was tired of not finishing things because I had these big dreams and these big aspirations, and I was really tired of not finishing, of being the person that talked about stuff. All the things I'm gonna do. I stopped doing it for a while. I was like, I refuse to talk about anything because I never freaking finish it. And it's like, it's embarrassing. And even with the marathon, I didn't even speak a word of it until I was like mile 5. Like, you do your long runs every Saturday or whatever. And then you do kind of maintenance runs throughout the week. And I'm like, I'm not telling anybody about this, any part of this, until I know I'm going to do it. Because, you know, oh, I'm running a marathon. Sure you are. Right. Sure you are. That's something that's totally going to happen because you have, my friend that I've known since I was 7, she was like, I don't think you've run 26 miles like in the 20 years that we've known each other. It's like total, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm just doing it. And it was a fundraiser. So people gave me money, and well, not me, the Stroke Association money. And to me, that became a commitment that I made to other people. And for me, that was much more hard to get out of than a commitment I made to myself. So I don't know. I think I was at an age that I needed something to sort of inspire me and get me going. And everything sort of fell into place while I was training. The training was like 4 months, and I started going to night classes for the graphic design at that point. And shortly after the marathon, I switched careers, and everything just sort of started falling into place. I think I always had the tools and I always had the ability. I just needed something to help me connect and to finally start moving where I was supposed to be going, you know? So I don't know.
Well, again, it's just your life is just so interesting. And I know you're in another interesting space right now where you're writing your latest book. I don't know if the title is out, but I know it has to do with your divorce. And just in what you had just said about, you know, running and some other life challenges, and it always gives you an opportunity to put things back together. I don't know what part of your divorce you want to get into, but I'd love to give you the platform to process those thoughts and share them, and maybe highlight what's going on with the book and what's going on with that.
Well, I have no idea what the title is. I'm sort of writing. It's the first time I'm writing something while I'm very much still in it. Where a lot of the running book, a great deal of it was my journals from when I was in it, but I didn't write it until maybe a year or 2 after. So I had some perspective on it. And then my baby books, I wrote about the first year of your first baby, but I think my kid was like 18 months old when I was writing it. So there's still a little perspective. And this one I'm kind of writing from inside, you know, like calling from inside the building. One of those, that horror movie, The Call is Coming from Inside the House. Oh, remember that movie? When a Stranger Calls. Oh, yeah. Why I was watching that when I was 10, no one knows. But yeah, so it's getting the book has sort of forced me to kind of deep dive into stuff because, you know, I need to sort of process and be able to write something that is honest and true and helpful to other people. So I'm kind of writing it from the point of view of it's another life explosion, and life explosions can happen for any reason. It doesn't have to be divorce. It can be, you know, you lose your job, there's a sudden death in your circle, there's a health scare, there's different reasons that life kind of gets picked up and, you know, just shaken about. And it can be really disorienting when it's happening. But I think because of what I went through in my 20s, I have a more perspective now to know that there's a lot of opportunity in this experience. When I was in my 20s, I kind of just dwelled in the sadness or the confusion of it for a lot longer than I should have, because it just feels endless when you're in it, right? But then you get to a point where things kind of start connecting and coming back to life, and you realize, oh, this was all something that had to happen, and it's amazing that it did happen. And at the other side of it, kind of like the fear thing, right? If there's something on the other side, if you're willing to go through it, if you're willing to process and go through it, and come out that other side. So I've moved to kind of acceptance and trying to find what's coming on the other side a lot quicker than I did in my 20s, because, you know, you do everything better in your 40s than you do in your 20s. But so I have this like metaphor thing that I'm sort of workshopping, and can I tell you guys my metaphor from my book?
Love it.
So when I was a teenager, I taught swim lessons for several summers to kids, and there was always these kids that were just terrified of the water. Like, you might as well be just putting them in hot lava, right? It was just, and I was that kid when I was a kid, like they just screaming for a half hour straight. It's amazing. So you have to pull them off the side of the pool. And you pull them off, and you got to take them into the pool, and they have no idea how deep it is. You might as well be in the ocean. They don't know. They freak out. They're flailing around. They're panicking. They're tense. They're grabbing onto my neck and my arms. Like, I have scars in my arms from these nails. It's a death grip, right? And it's a completely natural human reaction to impending death. Like, their brain is like, I'm about to die. I'm about to die. I'm about to die. This person's going to murder me. I'm going to drown. And you take them out there, and there's like, what you couldn't explain to them in their state was that it's the flailing and it's the tension and it's the freaking out that will actually make you sink right to the bottom of a pool. But what I'd have to do is convince them and gain their trust enough to convince them that if they just relax, put their little heads back in my hand and lean back and relax and be still and accept that they're going to be okay, then they can float. And you had to like get them to that point, almost like a trust fall, where they put their head in my hand and they're floating by themselves. They just feel like I'm helping them because I have a connection, right? And then to just let the water kind of do its thing, and they'll float and they'll be peaceful, and it's working. Once you get to that, then you can teach a kid how to swim, because you can't teach someone how to swim if they're freaking out and tensing up and folding, and then it's not going to work. So my metaphor is, I think that any life explosion, but divorce in particular, is you're being pulled off of where you feel comfortable. Whether or not that's where you should be, it's what you know, and you're being pulled off of that into a depth that you're unfamiliar with. And I think that your instinct is to flail and to rage and to grab on to anything that feels like a buoy. You know, it's why people marry the first person they date after they get divorced, or they hold on way too tight to that person. Or I have women that are just like, they're doing 500 different new hobbies. They're like, I'm knitting, I'm sailing, I'm horseback riding. It's like, you're just grabbing on for a buoy because you don't trust that you can float by yourself, that you will be okay. And so I think that once you calm down and you release and you accept this is your new place, and you're just still and sort of let the water carry you for a minute, then eventually you can start to learn how to swim in this new depth again. But first you have to calm down, and you have to be still, and you have to accept. And I don't think that the raging's bad. I think that it's important, because the raging and the flailing it's grief, right? It's life changing, and there's a space for that, for raging around and being mad and being sad and being all different things. I think that there's space for that, but I think that eventually you have to release and let go and be still and sort of let life come as it's going to come, and then you move on and learn how to swim in this new sort of depth. So that's like my working metaphor for this kind of time right after divorce, and sort of getting into your new normal. What do you think?
I love it. I love it. You said a whole bunch, but I really am going to take and share my thoughts on the last thing that you shared, was space for that. Because I think so many times we're so uncomfortable when we have space. And so we want to fill that gap with anything, just like you're saying, to grab on and hold on to whatever it is because I'm uncomfortable, but we don't realize that that's not gonna help me. And if I can just bathe in these emotions that I'm feeling, those are the essential ingredients that you need to create something amazing in your life. But we don't get there because we don't bathe in it. We don't marinate in those and let it become part of our fabric, because life is not always great. We have to experience sadness to truly experience joy and happiness. And so many of those opposites that we just think, no, it should be, full of happiness all the time. And so I think I love the metaphor that you use. I love your thoughts on it. I love that it's going to provide some good insight for people to slow down. Like you're saying, not take 500 different habits and start them and then not, complete them at all. I love you didn't use this word, but impermanence. I love that of, all right, let me sit in this space knowing that this isn't going to be my final resting place.
Yeah. And being okay that, like, marinating, like you said, it's like, I'm in this big house that was our family home, and my kids are only here half the time. And when I was first in here without them, I was like, it's really quiet. Like, my kids are 10 and 8. They're loud, and happy childhoods are very loud. And so it's like just me and the cats and the dog, and I'm like, what's up, guys? And like my impulse is like, let's go hang out with people. Let's start dating. Let's do these habits. Like I'm gonna start doing this and this, and like. But then I was like, no, just sit in this silence and sort of marinate in it. And it doesn't feel great. It feels very kind of aggressively odd and sad, but it's okay. We have, as people, we run away from anything that, like you said, isn't 100% happy. It's why we don't deal with grief well in our culture, and the dying and grief and that kind of thing, because we just can't, it's not something that we are comfortable being in that space. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of value to be found in just being still and sort of, like you said, accepting that this is not awesome, but it's not forever. And I think, this happened a lot with my first baby, where it's really not awesome those first few months. But it feels like, logically, this child is eventually going to sleep. And they're eventually going to not be wearing diapers, and they're eventually going to, there's a lot of, logically, that humans don't stay like this. But when you're in it and you're not sleeping, you haven't slept in 2 weeks, you got hormones that are all wackadoodle, it feels like, oh my God, this is forever. And then you get to your second kid and you're just a little more chill, because you're like, he'll get there. We're not, whatever. And I was so focused on my first one on getting her to the next stage that I didn't really appreciate the stage we were in. So with my son, for my second kid, he'd be up all night, because babies are up all night. So I'm like, let's roll, dude. And we just walk around the kitchen, go outside, look. And I wasn't so like, oh my God, are you ever going to sleep? I'm like, you'll sleep eventually. We'll all sleep eventually. And by that point, I was so tired anyway. I hadn't slept in 2 years anyway. So my body's like, whatever. We're just not sleeping. That's fine. But the acceptance that things are not, this isn't how life is going to be forever. And I think there's this need to heal and Band-Aid and Band-Aid and Band-Aid. And I think that, there's some value to be found in therapy and that kind of stuff. But there's also value to be found in just time and just chilling in the moment, and being okay with not being okay for a little bit.
Yeah. No, I love that. And so many students. I'm a nurse, is what I'm not working anymore, and but I've been a nurse for 29 years, and so many times on the campus where I was working, Sacramento City College, students would come in having a lot of anxiety and depression and struggling and not have anybody to kind of talk to about it. And not that I'm a counselor. As a nurse, you know your role and your scope of practice, but the majority of the time, they just needed to sit and listen really to themselves and to allow them to kind of process that. And then, okay, you do that first, and then you come back, and then we'll talk, and then I'll listen to you, and allow you to process what's going on. But yeah, that would be just some great advice for people listening in. Just kind of figure out what those emotions are, those feelings that you're having, and what's behind that, and realizing they're not permanent, and that life is going to continue to happen, and that there is some opportunity, like you're saying, to grow through those difficult times. A weird question, but have you had any guidance, a mentor perhaps, or a great book or something that's given you like, man, that's what I've been looking for. That can really help me take this step that I need to start to heal or see things from a different perspective? Or is it you just doing all the work that you do?
I don't know if there's really like a book or a mentor. I tend to, I'm an only child, and I have been able to have the opportunity to kind of curate my family in ways, not family, but, I have friends that I've had for I've just realized recently, we were hanging out with some friends, and like, we've known each other 30 something years. Like, it's just ridiculous. But especially considering I'm only 29. So it's hard that happened, but it is. It's just math, just go with it. But, when you're an only child, you have this opportunity to sort of grab on to friends as you travel through life, and really foster those friendships and value those friendships, and they become, your squad. And I'm really attracted to really good people, but also like I have like a lot of diversity in my friend group, and I enjoy their points of view. Like, I definitely enjoy someone that has a different point of view than me, and I enjoy bouncing off of people. And Wayne's been a huge one that I bounce off of, especially during the divorce stuff. Like, am I being crazy, or talk me through this, or talk me down, or whatever. And I think that's probably where I get a lot of my guidance, is that I have a lot of different points of view that I'm able to sort of tap into and ask questions of. And the main thing is, like, you have to be around people that aren't going to BS you, and you have to have the people that are going to call you on your am I allowed to cuss? I don't know. They're going to call you on your stuff and tell you when you're being crazy, or tell you when you're wrong, and challenge you. And I think that I've been really lucky in that regard, that I have people that will offer. I think I made a quote one time that was like, a friend is somebody that will tell you when you're wrong, and support you when they were right. Like, call you on it, say you're 120% wrong here, and then you still do it, and they're like, and I'm present, I'm here for you to help you pick up the pieces of the thing that happened, because you did what I told you not to do. Like, and that's what a friend is. They'll be like, you're an idiot, but I love you. And so that's kind of been a really nice thing that I've had throughout my life. A lot of people like that.
And that speaks so much to you, and it makes a lot of sense after spending this hour with you of how you appreciate diversity and perspective, and then how you like to surround yourself with that. And again, how you want some honest feedback. I mean, those are such gifts to have people in your life that you can be vulnerable enough to say, hey, I trust you to give me the essential ingredient that I need to get through this situation, whether that's, good or bad feedback, but I need to hear the truth. And again, how amazing would it be if we can create this world where that's the norm, where everybody has that, unfortunately, there's very few people that have that. I'm reading Jordan Peterson's book, Beyond Order, and I haven't verified the study that he was talking about, but it's in his book. And he mentioned that 25% of millennials do not have one person in their life to have this conversation that we're talking about.
Yeah.
That just breaks my heart.
Yeah. And I think that maybe it has something to do with social media and stuff. There's this social media offers this appearance of connection without actual connection. And, the pandemic didn't help at all. And now we're Zooming. And there's something about just being present with people and looking them in the eyes and having to human, like I could just hang up right now and be done with you guys. But if we're face to face, we have to work it out. And there's so much that's happening on social media that's like it's curated content, and everybody's sort of like, this is my life, and look at it's filtered in this, and everything's perfect, and everybody's kind of competing, and even with friends, right? And so you're getting this filtered version of reality from all your friends. I always love seeing my friends post stuff, and I know them well enough to know that things are not going well, or there's something that's not awesome. And I text message is awesome, and you can communicate stuff like that, but like it just, I don't know, there's just this lack of connection that people have these days, or the lack of willingness to be vulnerable, lack of willingness to admit that their life isn't filtered, it isn't beautiful and awesome and wonderful. Like life's hard, and if you don't have anybody that you can bounce that off of, then it can be really lonely and feel like you're the only one that is struggling, because everybody else, look at them, they look great on Instagram, like I'm the only one. And so it just can be really isolating. But I think, I remember when I wrote my first book, when you're a writer, you get handled with kid gloves a lot, because artists are sensitive, and they would kind of like go around telling you, I'm like, just tell me if it sucks. Like when you write something, you're so close to it, I want you to look at it with fresh eyes and be like, this sucks. And so my editor, at the beginning would kind of be nice, and I'm like, just tell me straight up. I don't beat around the bush. And so she would just be like, not funny, try again. And I'm like, I love it. I love, just tell me straight up what's going on. And so I can be better. There's always a chance to be better. And if you're not willing to hear people and take criticism, then you're not going to get better. And we can all be better, right? Like in every way, we can always be better.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it ties so much into what we were talking about before, of just being in that space to be able to listen to yourself, because in order to receive that feedback, you got to be in a good space emotionally, to be able to actually hear what's being said. I think so many times we start to get feedback and immediately our amygdala starts to fire. Hey, I don't like that. Nope, I'm going to put up my, and I only the first 3 or 4 words, and you might be talking for the next 15 minutes, and nope, I'm not here because I'm just waiting until you stop, because I'm going to get, and if we can create that, oh man, this world would be so much different. And again, that's what C4 Leaders is doing. We're just trying to have people come to the table and to honor them and coming and speak to all these, or create a platform to speak to these challenges that are going on, and just to have people honor that and see each other and to touch each other. And you're 100% correct. Yeah, oxytocin gets produced just when we're in proximity, of each other. You're within about 12 inches or so. Yeah. Our body's just like when you had, I don't know if you breastfed or not, but immediately, as soon as your child gets onto your breast and is starting to get fed, you're kicking out some oxytocin, and boom, you guys are connected forever. We need that now, and that happens face to face, sitting by each other. And again, C4 Leaders is going to be part of trying to help us get back to that space. With that said, I want to be mindful. I told you this time flies by for us, but what is the one thing, Don, that you're like, hey, Mike and Jeff, come on, You asked me on this show, and you didn't even ask me this question that I definitely need to get off my chest and share with the world. So what is that question? What, have we missed anything? Is there anything else that you're like, I really wanted to share that?
I feel like we covered a lot of ground. I think, divorce is, when you kind of start going through it, there's a lot of defensiveness and there's a lot of like finger pointing. I was talking to someone the other day and I said, do you want to get back with your husband? And she's like, well, if he went to therapy and he admitted that it was all his fault. And I was like, yeah, okay. So you want to get back with your husband if he essentially becomes an entirely different human, then it'll work. And at the very beginning, and when you're at the end of a marriage and kind of beginning of divorce, it's a lot of like, you did this, you're this, you're this. And the fact is, like, any relationship is complex and it's got a lot of nuance and a million reasons why things don't work. And each person owns 500,000 of those reasons. I think that, it's okay to be broken in different ways and acknowledge them. And it doesn't immediately put you at 100% fault for anything, but it puts you at 100% fault if you're not willing to kind of do the work to be better. I think that's kind of the space that I'm in right now, is like having to deep dive into, how do you get here? How did this happen? And, it's not the ending that I wanted and expected, but here we are. And how did it happen? And how do we do better next time? I think that, like that quote, it's never too early or too late to basically kind of recalibrate and be a different person, or different actions at least, and be conscious of what you're putting out into the world. So I don't know.
I love
it's very random. And I'm just sort of.
I'm sure you're familiar with the word kintsugi. Have you run across that?
No, it sounds familiar. What is it?
I love it. It's Japanese, been practicing in the art form for centuries, and it's the art of being broken. And I love some people.
Oh, yeah. I think you said it in one of your podcasts. I love it. Say it again.
Yeah, it comes up every now and then, but when people use that word broken, because I think a lot of times it's one of those words where nobody wants to admit that I'm broken. And it's because it's just strong. It can be a real harsh word. And so I get that point of view, but also if you can just kind of surrender in a good way to that. Yeah. Just like you, hey, 500,000 are mine, 500,000 are so-and-so's, and realize that, hey, yeah, we're both kind of broken. But if this kintsugi art form, they take an ancient artifact and on purpose break it, clean it up, fill in the lacquer, and fill in 24 karat gold.
Yeah.
Stronger and more beautiful than it was before. And just in hearing you, and getting to know you a little bit better from this show, that's what I see and hear is you're like, hey, I'm going to take this time of being broken and I'm going to heal myself and I'm going to be better than I was before. And so I congratulate you for getting into that space, for doing what only Dawn does, which is write about it, share and help people get through it so we can all learn together. And so, yeah, excited to follow your career and get a read of that book. I thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing your life with our listeners. And we're in 15 countries now, even though this thing is just starting, like 140 cities. And so we're excited to just get great people like you to come on and share what's truly essential in their life.
I appreciate the invitation.
Yep. Pashito, you want to get us out?
Oh, yeah. Just one last thought, Don. I think the title of your book should be The Shit No One Tells You About Divorce. Just a thought.
Working title.
Working title. But thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you so much for sharing. We really appreciate it.
It was nice talking to you guys.
All right, listeners, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Life's Essential Ingredients with my Pasho. I'm Jeff. You can reach me at jeff@c4leaders.org. We would love to hear from you. And again, Dawn, thank you so much for coming on the show. With that, Pashito, got another one done, baby. Boom. We out.